Hey, welcome to Subbase Pain Cave slash office slash dungeon basement, whatever you want to call it. It is actually getting warm here in Kansas City for a change. It's actually kind of nice to be down in the basement for a minute instead of freezing cold like it is in the winter. But anyway, I want to go over a quick idea with you guys, revisit, especially this day and age, all our races are kind of getting pushed off later in the year in the fall and stuff. So I wanted to revisit some racing strategy and some topics. And real quick, I want to hit on race pacing. So what I mean with that is when you're doing a race, you're measuring your effort and your output and everything to make sure that you're able to go from start to finish and not gas out by the end, or not get to the end and be like, oh, I had tons of energy left, I didn't pace that right at all. So this is my quick hit list for making sure that you pace a race correctly. And typically I'm kind of going into the longer races. Sprint race, you're kind of doing it as hard as you can for the entire time. Olympic, a little bit more of a strategy to it, but once you get to 70.3 and 140.6, you need to be really diligent about your pacing. So the first point is, no matter what you're doing, Olympics, 70.3, 140.6, don't go out there and just totally kill the swim and then come out of the water and be totally drained. That is a very small portion compared to the overall distance of the race and your overall time. Just find your rhythm, get in there, don't go crazy at the beginning, lose your breath, just make sure it's a nice even pace throughout the entire swim. Don't kill the bike. Unless you're some superstar or something like that, just going out there and going 100%, 110% on the bike the entire time is just a recipe for disaster, especially 70.3, 140.6. You get off that bike, you're already spent, you're toast. You go out into the run, maybe your first 2-3 miles, you feel pretty good, and then you just tank and go into the toilet. Just don't kill yourself on the bike ride. Make sure that you pace it correctly. Usually I give about the first quarter of the bike, I do about 60%, so really kind of my under race effort, but really trying to get find out where my effort and my pace is going to be and kind of what I'm feeling. Weather could be different, tons of variables. So that first quarter of the race for the bike distance, I'm kind of feeling out how I feel, what the climate's going to be like, what the conditions going to be like, and then measure it off of that. After a quarter, I'm about 75% of my FTP, so I've got my power meter on my bike, and that's kind of my goal. And measuring it, you're thinking about normalized power over the long haul. So at some points, it might be over FTP, it might be under FTP. Just don't do sustained long periods of time over FTP, especially if you're going to hammer the bike on a down or flat section. You got a tailwind. Don't go crazy and start hammering the bike on the when you're in about 75% of FTP is your goal. So just don't go crazy on it. So on the bike, you're at Z3, zone 3, very low zone 4 max, especially on a 70.3. That's kind of where I'm racing at. Once I get to 40.6, I'm really at the high end of zone 2, low end of zone 3, so I don't go over crazy on the longer distances during the bike ride. And then if you're feeling good, a little bit coming into transition, maybe there's a few opportunities to spend a little bit of energy, but just don't go crazy on the bike. Once you get into T2 and you're out on the run, really dial it back on the run. I come out of T2 and try to be as laid back as possible. You're going to have lots of energy, lots of adrenaline going through you, especially if the crowds and everything. You're really going to want to feel, just take it and run with it, and you're going to run yourself into the ground the first 2 or 3 miles, and you're going to be dragging ass the rest of the race. So when you come out on the run, again, about the first quarter of the run, I'm watching my heart rate. I'm staying in zone 2, finding a nice cadence, nice rhythm, and focusing on form and economy to try to get through the run. So the next half of the run, I'm looking at kind of the high zone 2. So I'm letting myself go a little bit further into zone 2. Try to stay out of zone 3 on the run, because especially at the 70.3, 140.6 distance, the longer you spend in zone 2, the better off you are for the long haul. So that last quarter of the run, if you're still feeling it, mile 10 on 70.3 or mile 22 probably on 140.6, if you feel like you've got some extra, that's the time to kind of turn up a little bit and see what you can do. The last thing you want to do is try to burn energy up front thinking you're feeling good and trying to the run, because there's no way to get it back. So once you spin it on the run, you're not going to get it back unless you're going to walk and then regain a little bit of energy to make a second run and trying to be faster on the run. But so listen to your body at that last quarter of the run. If you've got some extra energy, that's where you can spend it, and that's where you want to time yourself just right. So at the end of the race, you feel like all the energy you could to get to that finish line and did the best possible. You don't want to come away with, like I said, kind of dragging yourself across the finish line. You also don't want to come away with feeling at the end that you had more energy and you could have done better and you could have bettered your time or something like that. So you got to make sure you time it right. And my last point is, like I said, energy is finite. Once you spend it, you can't really get it back, especially the 70.3, 140.6, especially on the run. There's not going to be very many opportunities to go out and make up that energy. There's really no place to coast like you could on a bike. There's no downhills on a run that you can coast and just not do any work and still make forward progress. So energy is finite. Make sure you spend it in the right spot. And those are my quick little tips on race pacing. So right now we're all kind of doing a reset, and we're kind of working on our strategy. So when you're getting back in your training mode, that's what you need to be focusing on, those longer rides, longer runs, kind of working at the race pacing to make sure that you can follow a plan. Come up with a plan and then follow it in your training. That way you can follow it on race day, and it's not totally new. You get out there and it's like, well, I think I'll try to run in zone 2 this time. And Michael, I see you watching. I'm talking to you. Race day is not the time to be start training in zone 2. So make sure you're doing it when you're out there doing your training rides, especially when you're doing 6 100-mile runs or 100-mile rides in a row. And especially, Jonathan, you're out there doing your 25-mile runs every weekend. Make sure you're doing it in zone 2. Make sure you get plenty of benefit from that. So, if you got any questions, put them in the comments. And thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.